Thank you all for joining us today for our fourth annual Ucrew program. We are excited to have you all join us here today. You are in for quite a treat with Lisa. This is a very interactive and dynamic session, and she has so many great tips. I still use what I learned when I heard her speak last year. So just a little bit about myself and crew, and then I'm going to invite two of our fellow committee members to give you a little bit of overview from their perspective on Crew New York. So my name is Erin Timko. I am the chair of the Career Advancement Committee. This is my first year as chair, but I've been on the committee for about 5 or 6 years now. And we put together programs just like this, Ucrew. Our main goal is to do outreach to students for undergrad and graduate levels to help you engage and give you guidance, support, and education on how to enter the industry for all different disciplines. Crew is very representative, and so there is a home for everyone. And we are excited to have you join us today. So as I mentioned, I've been on the committee for a couple of years. This is my first year chairing it. This is our fourth year doing Ucrew. This is our second year virtual. We are hoping to be back in person for 2022. I know everyone's slowly starting to get back into in-person events, and we're very much looking forward to doing that as well. So Crew for me has been extremely beneficial, and for any young person that's been in the market or working part-time and going to school or whatever your situation may be, I would say I always recommend getting involved with a trade association or a group that will help you network, especially for your career. So Crew New York welcomes men and women, and our main focus is obviously to promote women in the industry, but we do welcome both and encourage both to participate. And some of our program offerings are, we have scholarships. You'll see emails if you are a grad student starting in January. We do programs for women that are trying to get back into the workforce, and then of course undergraduate. And we are launching a mentee program in the spring. If you're interested in participating, please reach out and let me know. We're looking for mentees to pair up with mentors within Crew New York, and you do not have to be a member to participate. So if that is of interest to you, that is a program we're going to be rolling out in the spring as well. But I know there's a lot of these programs that offer scholarships and young professional committees and networking and job postings. So I always highly encourage you to get involved if you are not. And Crew New York does have student opportunities to join and participate. And so we'd be happy to talk to you about those as well. So I'm actually going to turn it over first. So Wendy Berger is the co-chair of Ucrew for the program this year, and Robin Landau is the co-chair of the Career Advancement Committee. So you've got a couple different co-chairs with us today, but I will ask Wendy to give her comments on her experience with Crew and Ucrew and any advice that she might have for our attendees today.
Sure. So I'm a real estate attorney. I practice in New York and New Jersey and actually do work all around the country. And I'm also an adjunct professor at NYU where I teach real estate law. And what I want to tell everyone is I was an attorney for about 20 years before I really found my practice getting involved with a lot of New York deals, New York transactions, and national transactions. So I started going to a lot of events in New York and realized unless it was a person I was particularly working on something with at that time, I really didn't have a network in New York. We had an office in New York that I had other colleagues in, but I didn't have a network in New York. So I joined Crew, and that was one of the best decisions I ever made. One, it gave me an organization to get involved with, to meet people. I started on a committee, just like Erin said, and then I became a chairperson of that committee. Then I became a board member. Then I became an officer of Crew. Then I even became on a committee in national for Crew National. And I started to go to events nationally for Crew. And it was a wonderful experience. And for those of you who are just getting involved in networking, you can imagine going to an event in New York in one of these large hotels or large venues. I remember once walking into the Intrepid and going to a dinner there, and thousands of people on it. And you know what? Within 5 minutes of walking in, I knew 5 other crew members there. And that's what I found right away was wonderful because everyone is willing to help you and willing to introduce you to who they're with or who might do work with you. And networking is hard. It takes some practice, it takes time, but I found that crew was great for that. And it was great not only for networking for work, but we all have issues and problems and things we want to figure out in our own lives. And I found the women in crew were willing always to help with that. And just as one of my stories for crew is that I met a woman at crew that I happened to be on a committee with. She was worked for a developer, and I knew her for about 3 years. Never did any business with her, about 3 years. One day she calls me up. She says, we decided to do a deal in New Jersey. First matter she ever gave me, $50 million transaction. So you never know where the business might come from or who it might come from. So you just have to persevere. And also, just to add to what Erin said about scholarships, Crew nationally does give out scholarships to undergraduates. And in fact, 2 of my students at NYU received scholarships this year. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention again. So it's been, for me, it's been a great experience. I've met wonderful people. I've had, friends that have been lifetime friends as a result. And besides that, it's great for networking.
Thank you, Wendy. Yes, I know networking is so important. It can be a little intimidating when you're getting started, but those are some good tips. And it definitely helps to have friendly faces in a room. Getting involved is the best way to do that. So Robin, if you want to give a little bit of insight from your perspective, that would be great. And then we will hand it over to Lisa.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. And I'm so glad that you are joining us for this event. My name is Robin Landau. I'm an architect and interior designer. I have my own practice in New York. We practice across the country, and our firm is about to turn 100 years old. I have been a part of Crew for probably the last 5 or 6 years. As Erin said, I'm the vice chair of the committee. And for me, Crew has been a wonderful experience in that I have met both women and people to network with, as well as people who have become friends. And I would say getting involved in Crew at the beginning of your career can only do wonders for you, for your career, for your friendships. Everybody is here, as both Erin and Wendy said, to help each other. That is our goal. There are many people in similar professions in this group, and we are here to collaborate. We're here to help each other grow. We have large events, but the nice thing is that when you're involved, when you join committees, you know the people. So as Wendy said, you walk into a room at a networking event and there are bound to be people that you know and people that you can call friends. I encourage all of you to get involved in our mentorship program because you can learn so much from the women that are involved in this organization. And we want to learn from you as well. Everybody has something to share. Everybody has something to teach, whether you're the mentor or the mentee. And we look forward to getting to know you all and hope you'll all become part of this organization now or in the future.
I echo everything you say, Robin. Thank you. So we are going to get started just a few minutes early, and I will give a brief introduction of Lisa, and I will let her take it over from here. But I would like to encourage everyone. This session is meant to be very interactive. Lisa is she literally is the most engaging person I have ever heard speak, especially on Zoom. She spoke to our group last year. we ended up going over. We will make sure to stick to time today to be respectful of everyone's time, but we want you all to get a lot out of this. There are tips and tricks that I learned last year that I still put into effect today. So there's so much to learn about Lisa. She is a productivity consultant, success coach, a business strategist, a speaker, and an author. You are in for a treat with her today. She has so many different sessions, but really thought that working on building your brand, especially in a digital world and with everyone being virtual, would be very helpful for you as students, as you start to network, depending on where you are in school, if you are just starting out or if you're getting ready to look to be on the job market. So many of these should be of very useful to you. And I will turn it over to Lisa, and please, 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 please be as engaged as you can, because that's how we all get the most out of this session for the next hour and a half. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Erin. And hello, everyone that's here. And for anyone that's watching this on the recording after, hello to you also. I am coming to you from Northern California, where it is early morning and very foggy. But I am from New York originally. So say hello to the Big Apple for me and all of the surrounding areas for those of you that are there. Like Wendy, I taught as an adjunct professor of law in Michigan, in Detroit College of Law, and also served as a career counselor for NYU. So say hi to NYU for me, Wendy. And I do teach this branding for professionals, and I also teach it for a lot of students. And so I think what Erin said is important, that use this wherever you are. So if you're a student and you're using this as you're sort of launching your new career, that's great. If you're using this and you've been in the workforce for years and you're moving in a lateral position, use this for your interview prep, etc. So let's dive in. Let me go ahead and do a screen share and pull up the PowerPoint, and we can get started. Great. So if all the technology is working, you should now be seeing the title slide and just the title slide. So give me a thumbs up. All right, good. It's always nice when it works, right? So the first thing about branding is to know that we're talking about branding from within. So it's an inside out approach. It's a little bit different than what a lot of people think of, and I'll explain a lot more about that this morning. We're going to peel back the layers of the onion to get to the core of who you really are inside. And then we're going to have you sort of wear externally those brand strands and share them with the world professionally and personally. And I already see something coming up in the chat. Okay, I have provided you the slide deck. So for those of you that love to take notes and that's the way you learn, feel free to do that. Go grab a piece of paper or open up a blank screen on your laptop. But if not, Ucrew has gone ahead and given you the entire PDF slide deck. There's also an interactive handout which lists all of the exercises that I'll be doing today. I encourage you to use that either today or as homework, and feel free to share that with other people that become branding partners that you want to continue to do this work with in the future. So let's look at branding before marketing and branding before networking. So think of branding as the heart. If branding is a person, it's the heart, it's the core. And then marketing is the skin. So it's the way that you engage with the outside world as a whole. And networking is much more intimate. It is the smile and the voice. So it's the part that engages one-on-one on a more personal level. So if you're looking at it like that, you can see why we start with branding first, because we're going inside out. If you were walking around with your skin and your smile and your voice, but you had no idea what's in your core, you would be sharing the wrong information and people would be getting maybe not the true you. So we're going to try to get the true you. And the reason we also want to be our true authentic selves is that people tend to do business and engage with people they know, like, and trust. And that is known as the KLT factor in sales and marketing. And so you will hear people say that. And we'll talk in a few minutes about a unique brilliance proposition, which is a little twist on the unique selling proposition that they talk about in sales and marketing. But because we tend to sustain professional relationships with those we know, like, and trust, it is important for people to know who you are. And this does apply to organizations and individuals. So think right now of some individuals that you engage with. You probably like them. if you don't like them, then they better be really good at what they do, because they have to overcome the negative part of the KLT, and that might be the only reason why you're still engaging with them or using them, or it just might be mandatory. This also applies to organizations. You tend to buy products from and follow online organizations that you either care about or you are somehow engaged with. So that's another reason why you want to bring your true self. So before we dive into more of the branding, we're going to start with an exercise. And basically, people go to networking events, and they can be virtual or they can be in person. And a lot of times you're doing exactly what they show here. You're networking, you're standing around, you're talking, and oftentimes you have your little name tag on, and people will look at you and say, "Hi, Lisa, so what do you do?" And that basically is code for tell me about your professional life. That's usually what they mean by that question. The problem is the typical response is, "I am a blank," and people fill that in with their job title. That's absolutely not the right way to start. And the reason is it creates stereotypes and assumptions. So if I said to you, "I'm an attorney," which I am, even though I don't practice anymore, if you have a good perception of attorneys, you might like me, right? But let's say you just went through a really nasty case or a bad divorce, or your parent is an attorney who keeps pushing you to go into that field, but you don't really like it. So you might have all this sort of baggage that's come with that title. Or someone gives you a title that you don't understand. They're like, "Oh, I'm the data processing manager, blah, blah." And you're like, or your eyes glaze over. You're like, "I'm sorry, I just fell asleep." Because titles are boring. They're extremely boring, and they don't really say what you do. So I'm going to ask you, instead of giving your title, to quickly say your elevator pitch. Maybe 20, 30 seconds. I'm going to quickly put you in breakout rooms. And the catch is you can't use your title. And of course you're thinking, well, what can I use? Give it a try. Just see what it feels like, winging it. And I'm doing this for a reason. And then when we come back, we'll go through all of the branding, and a little later, we'll get back into the elevator pitch, and I will give you what's called a positioning statement to sort of build a better elevator pitch. But in the meantime, let me actually move you into breakout rooms. It'll be very quick. For those of you that are watching this recording later on, you can use this time while everyone is in breakout rooms to do this exercise on your own. So just practice it in front of the mirror, or if you have someone in the room with you, go ahead and practice it with them. Actually, you know what? I don't think we have breakout rooms. Maybe it's because, let me just take a look, Karen. We can't do breakout rooms. Okay, no worries. So let's practice it quickly with a role play. Who would like to practice? I need two people, two brave volunteers. And if you could just quickly give each other your elevator pitch in front of all of us, it's even better because then instead of going into a breakout room, you can actually see the magic happening. And you could do it.
I was gonna say, Lisa, so I think the way the attendees are set up, we can move them all in or give them speaking capabilities if you'd like. So we can do one of two things. Well, Wendy and I can go first if you'd like for our elevator pitch, or Wendy and Robin, however you'd like, if you guys want to volunteer. But for the attendees that we have on, we can upgrade them to panelists so we can all see each other, and then everyone will have speaking opportunities since we don't have the breakout sessions.
Okay.
So sorry about that.
Let's just do two of you if you're okay with doing that. That'd be great. Just so that they could see what it feels like to hear an elevator pitch without a title. So if two of you don't mind doing it, that'd be great.
I'll get started. Hi, my name is Erin. I work with universities, and I help bridge the gap between academics and industry.
Wonderful. Okay, either Wendy or Robin.
Hi, my name is Wendy Berger. I help developers in New York and New Jersey get their projects over the finish line.
Wonderful. And do you see what they both just did there? So instead of, and hold on one second, I lost all of you. There you are. Instead of giving you their title, they said, "I help blank." So who you work with or the target market with blank, the service or the product provided, so that they can blank, get the results or benefits achieved. And that's basically the positioning statement formula. It's what you do, who you do it for, and the benefits or results achieved or received. It's an expression of who you are, what makes you stand out, and why people or organizations would like to work with you. So really think about practicing this elevator pitch more, and we'll get back into that a little more later. And thank you so much to Erin and Wendy for being our guinea pigs. I appreciate that. So can a person be a brand? The answer is yes, but what I would love to do is have you think of some people right now that you think are brands and put them in the chat for me. It'd be really interesting to see who you come up with. And I apologize for one moment. I lost you all, I can't see you. Jay-Z, okay, great example. Definitely a person and a brand. Oprah, wonderful. Michael Jordan. Yeah, we were just watching his the documentary about him. Definitely a brand. And any of the Kardashians, correct? And of course, some of the people you're naming, all of the people you're naming are very recognizable celebrities. Can you think of a person, and we might not know who they are, but can you think of a person, Elon Musk? Can you think of a person that's not a celebrity that you think has a distinct brand? Could be someone in your life, could be someone you work with. You. Thank you, Wendy. Mother Teresa. Ooh, that's a really good one.
Good one.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever said that in one of my workshops. I see Mike, Sam, Michael Bloomberg. Yep. So again, Michael Bloomberg, funny, not a celebrity, but definitely a politician, so a recognizable person. But what I'm trying to get at here, and I think you're really nailing it, is that people can be brands, not just organizations. And your personal brand is a way of communicating what is inherently you. So take a look at this person. If you met this person, what would you say about this person just based on one of the brand strands, which is visual brand strand? So to me, this is fun and engaging and bold and risk taker, just by looking at that pink hair and the big bubble. Anything else you would say about this particular person? I'd also say young. Just from my perspective, this person is youthful. Anything else you'd say about the visual brand of this person? Again, we're guessing at all this, but visual is one of the brand strands. And so it does play into it. Creative, that's a great one. Yeah. And two of you have already said that, which is really neat. Trendy, another good one. Yep. Love those. Yeah. And I think you've really forward thinking. See, so interesting to see what people come up with. Carefree, really nice. Bold, yes, exactly. I thought of the same thing. Risk taker, you said bold. Irreverent. So these are really neat. Fun loving. Yeah, you don't look at this and think, boy, that's a really serious person who's boring. I don't want to sit next to them. I'm thinking, I want to sit next to that person. Unique, that's a really good one from a brand strand standpoint. So you'll see that right now, all I've given you is visual brand, a certain amount of seconds to look at someone. Now, is this fair? People say, oh, I hate that we make assumptions about people's brands based on looking at them quickly. It is a reality that unless we're visually impaired, that when we see a person, that their visual brand strand is very strong and tells us something about them. And so therefore, we need to use that to our benefit to make sure that we're conveying the right message. Does your reputation matter? Yes, it does, because it's up to you to create it, to mold it, to protect it, and to guard it. And it matters personally and professionally, and it is the image that's created in other people's minds when they connect with your reputation. So when people think about branding, sometimes they're like, I don't get it. Think of it as one form of, one aspect of your reputation. And the nice thing is it's within your control to an extent. It's also really powerful because it's portable. You take it with you in your entire career. You graduate from high school, from college, from graduate school. You go from job to job. You move from state to state. You're sitting here virtually connecting with people around the country and possibly the world. And a lot of this has to do with your brand. Your earning power has been proven to be connected to your brand, your position at work, which actual level of position, and your ability to work on certain projects and be selected for certain assignments, all connect back to your brand. So it really is a powerful indicator of your career. So let's look at a little bit of the roadmap. We're going to conduct a personal brand audit today together, and we're going to look at what's called your UBP. And all of you sitting there at home or at work or maybe at a cafe, hold up your thumb because you all have a unique thumbprint. That is your UBP. Your UBP is your unique brilliance proposition. And in 2 or 3 slides, I will give you all of the different characteristics that go under your UBP. Your personal brand identity is how your brand is showing up now in the present. The showcasing your brand are the 5 brand strands, which we will cover. Your 5 personal branding words is an exercise that I'm going to teach you how to do today and that you can work on moving forward. Those 5 words can show up in your LinkedIn profile, in your bio, in your cover letter, maybe even on your resume. But even more importantly than where they show up, it's how you wear them, literally and figuratively. And your personal brand vision is where you want to go in the future because you can change your brand, which is great. And then hopefully you have a little action plan going on as we go through the slides today. So I like to teach the 4 C's of branding and marketing, and I call those relationship building. They're easy to remember because they all start with C. You want to provide great content, and that could be your writing sample, your cover letter, your resume, what you put on social media. All of that is your content. And the nice thing is it's within your control, and that is part of your brand. You want to have good communication skills, spoken and written, and nonverbal also, which we will talk about. So communication is a big part of your brand also. Do you want to be reliable and dependable? Then communicate well and communicate quickly and promptly. Connection. You want to make an engaging, unique connection with people. People remember people. So if we went to a networking event together, I might walk over and start talking to you because I see that you're wearing a beautiful scarf, and you might tell me you got it in Italy, and I might mention I've been to Italy, and we might start talking. I would have an instant connection to you based on that, not even knowing what you do for a living, because we both maybe have a love of travel, and we both maybe have a global mindset. So think about making a true connection with people. And then consistency is that if you do have a good handle on your brand, be consistent about it. So try to at least 80% of the time show up as that brand. If you stray from that brand once in a while, make sure it's intentional. Otherwise, people will notice things that are quite off brand and go, huh. So if you meant to do that, that's great. But if you didn't mean to do that, that can be a problem. So content, so great content, great communication skills, an authentic connection, and be as consistent as possible. So there's a wonderful book by Julia Cameron, which is actually on my back shelf, and it's called The Artist's Way. And a lot of people don't read the book because they are concerned that it's only for artists. I'm going to encourage many of you to maybe pick it up, grab it from the library, go to an independent bookstore, go to Amazon. And the reason is that it's a lot deeper, I think, than people realize. It's really about what is your true calling, the through line of all of your careers and your endeavors. And it's also known by some people as your archetype. So some of you may not know what this is yet, but hopefully over time you will. But I'll give you an example in my own career. I went to law school in the evening at Pace University in New York, which was wonderful, which was a wonderful experience for me. And when you go to law school in the evening, you go for an extra year because you take less credits in the evening than you would during the day. And while I was going to law school in the evening, I was a teacher and interpreter at the New York School for the Deaf. So my aunt and uncle are deaf, and I grew up around deaf culture and community, and I already knew sign language, so I started working there during the day. So I was a teacher, then went to law school, and then came out and started practicing law. And so you think that, okay, maybe my archetype is lawyer or debater, but really my archetype is teacher, because even as a lawyer, I saw my role as a true counselor of law, as someone that would educate and counsel people. Then when I left my law career after 9/11 and opened this business in 2002, I started working as a coach, consultant, and speaker, and I still saw my role as teacher. So my through line, my true calling is teaching people. So think about what might your true line be. And it doesn't matter, again, what your job title is and what you actually do, it's what you bring to that role. So your true calling might be communicator, connector, teacher, speaker, writer, even though researcher, even though you might be doing something else. So I'd love to see in the chat if anyone has an idea of what you think your art is that runs through all the work you do despite your title throughout your lifetime. Put it in the chat. And by the way, if you're thinking, I haven't even launched my career yet, then think about what you want it to be. So I see someone saying connector. That's a great one. So regardless, again, of what you're doing, you're always going to be using that through line and that sweet spot. Problem solver, another great one. And I'll give you a hint here. If you're working in a job that doesn't allow you in any way to use this through line, this true calling, this art, you're not going to be as satisfied or as happy. So don't only look at the title of a job when you're taking it, look clearly at what you're going to be doing and make sure that you figure out really wonderful ways for your art and your true calling to come through. Let's see if there are any others. Connector, problem solver, anyone else? I'm curious to see if anyone has other types of art or through line running through their work. One of my clients is a teacher. Good, another one, right? And I think people, when they think of teacher, they think of K through 12. So maybe you call yourself an educator. A facilitator, that's another great one. So you're always facilitating people doing something or organizations doing something, facilitating solutions, etc. So that's another great one. Good. So Maya Angelou said, nothing can dim the light that shines from within. So let's get into the UBP. Oh, and let me just look, I have one more in the chat. Comprehending people. That's an interesting one. I'm trying to think how I translate that. An interpreter or a translator, not of language, but ideas. So really your sweet spot, your art is understanding people. That's actually really neat. Not necessarily, again, doesn't mean you need to become a psychologist, but human behavior to you is something you love to study, and you probably bring empathy and active listening skills. So that tells me a lot about you, Sheila, just by hearing that that's your through line. So you'll see that, again, if we're looking at this as an onion, you can either go to the core and come out, or you can come out and go back in. So maybe your title is X, but if I start to really ask you a lot of questions, I get to the core, and then you want to emanate that back out. So let's look at what makes you stand apart, what sets you apart from others, and what are your unique areas of brilliance. So these are what I call the UBP touch points. And by the way, if you can think of anything that is not on this slide, please put it in the chat and I'll be happy to add it to this presentation in the future, because it keeps getting bigger, and that's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. So what I'd love to do is let's do a little inventory exercise. So think about jotting these down on a piece of paper, or on your smartphone in a note, or open up a document, my branding document on your computer, or just do this right now in your head. But go ahead and pay attention to this. Your education, everyone has a different education. Some people have a very unique education. There are people that will say, my background is a former employment law attorney, and they'll say, well, our recruitment committee is really concerned, Lisa, why? Well, we have 2 candidates and they're exactly the same, impossible. And so I'll go through the UBP with them, and they'll realize they're not exactly the same. They might have just graduated from the same school. They might have even been the same year. Did they take the same major, the same classes? Did they have literally the same professors, the same clubs, the same extracurricular activities, the same grades, etc.? So everyone's education is very different. So that's the first thing to think about. Your background, where you grew up, who you grew up with. Are you a child of immigrants? Are you a different socioeconomic background? What did you do at home with your family? Did you ever even leave your hometown until you were a certain age? Did you travel? So background is huge and a big part of your UBP. Employment, what jobs have you had? A lot of times people will discredit for themselves jobs they had when they were a kid. And yet those jobs become sometimes quite important in their life. So for example, I was a swim team coach and swimming instructor at my town pool. My husband was the head lifeguard. That's how we met at 19. We're still together today. So sometimes jobs become really important for your overall personal brand, but they also can become really important for the rest of your life. An example for me was I worked at that deaf school, not really thinking about what a major part of my life that would become. In law school, I wound up writing my law review article on the Americans with Disabilities Act, because I went to law school in the 90s when it was passed and it was a big deal, and then did a lot of work for the ABA on the rights of persons with disabilities. So that job, working at that school for those years, wound up really reframing in some ways my entire legal career. So think about your employment, your level of expertise, mastery, or certification that you have, the languages you speak. And I'm going to really stress this because I see people leaving languages off of their resume, and I see people leaving languages off their LinkedIn. Please don't do that. Being multilingual is a wonderful thing to share and boast about. It is definitely a big part of your UBP, and it should not be hidden. And lots of other places in the world besides America, it is pretty much a given that people are multilingual. We're one of the only countries that tend to be a little more unilingual. So if you are multilingual or bilingual, please make sure you highlight that as part of your brand. Your personality. Are you funny? Are you warm and sincere? Are you reserved? Are you, what are you? What's your personality like? That is a big part of your UBP. What is the experience that you have working with certain populations or in certain settings? What are your hobbies and interests? Yes, those definitely are part of your UBP. And what are your volunteer activities? So hopefully you now realize, like, wow, I'm pretty unique. You are. So let me actually run a poll because I'm really curious. Here we are. So I've gone ahead and launched one of the polls. If you could answer this, and it is multiple choice, you should be able to select any that apply. That would be wonderful. So what are some of the most unique things about you personally? And I'm going to take this moment to quickly stop sharing. I promise I'll share again. There you are. I lost all of you. Can't see your lovely faces. And then I'll reshare in a moment. Oh, wow, this is great. I will share these answers in one moment. Give you a chance to look through those. So go ahead and put in the chat for me what languages you speak, because I think it's very interesting to see all the beautiful, unique languages. So for example, is there anyone else that's proficient in American Sign Language? That would be fun. Chinese. And I'm going to ask which dialect, just because I have a lot of Chinese friends and neighbors, and so I know some of the different dialects. Mandarin. Okay. French. Missy. Anyone else? It's really wonderful to see. And some people say, I have a working knowledge. Does that count? Sure, it does. I believe it does. Would you be able to use it on a daily basis in your job? No. But if someone came in, could you say hello? Could you say thank you and you're welcome in their own language to make them feel comfortable? I think that's great. Okay, let me go ahead and share these results. So you'll see that most of you put that what is unique about you is your background. So of course, if you feel comfortable, so someone said, I speak Persian and Spanish, and then HE. Sheila, if you could explain what you mean by HE. So that might even be a language I'm not. Oh, Hebrew. Wonderful. Yes. So if you could go ahead and share with me, I'm really curious. So many of you put your background is unique. What about your background is unique if you feel comfortable sharing? Because I think, and I believe I'm sharing the results. Here we are. You'll see that quite a few of you also listed your career path. And I'm actually glad that many of you did, because everyone thinks a career path has a very straight line trajectory. And that is not true. Many people's career paths have zigzagged. And yet there's almost always a way to highlight the transferable skills that you had from one job to another and look for, again, parallels, through lines, and describe the brand around having those different jobs. So what did you learn from those jobs that helped you? So if anyone feels comfortable, put in what it is unique about your background in particular. I would love to see that in the chat, because I think that's a really neat one that came up. Someone has a particular certification, for example, a special or hidden talent. The person that said that, if you feel comfortable saying what it is, it's always fun to see what the special or hidden talents are. I can twirl a baton like you can't believe. I was like, the kid in front of the the fire person's parade, twirling the baton, and I twirled the baton during halftime. And even at this age, if I pull the baton out of my memory box, muscle memory, I can just twirl away. So anyone have a really unique talent? Now, am I ever going to twirl my baton? No, probably not in a public setting. Okay, so hopefully you are seeing the slide deck again. And for some reason, there's a glitch today and I can't see you. So if you could just let me know that you're seeing the slide deck again and that you're seeing just the one slide, that'd be great. If you could put it in the chat. Yes, yay, good. So I will just have to forego seeing your faces for now. Okay, good. So now we are getting a blank slide. Here we are. So here is an example of a UBP in action. This is Italy, and that is because my Italian heritage is a huge part of my UBP. This is a show that I was in, Les Mis, because I grew up as an actress and then decided instead to go to law school because law school is such an easy fallback, right? Haha. Oh, good. I have someone that's sharing. Sheila said, I came to study in college, but within a year, my family had to move to the US because of the Iranian Revolution. Very unique background. And no one is going to have the exact same experience as you with your family and with the experiences you had. So that is a wonderful example of a unique background. Thank you so much, Sheila, for sharing. I appreciate that. So child of immigrants from Italy, background in theater, then went to law school. As I mentioned, fluent in American Sign Language and have deaf family members. Worked for years at Pace University Law School and walked the Brooklyn Bridge for lunch a few days a week. I love that bridge. The Big Apple is a big part of my heart. Then became a speaker, consultant, and moved to Northern California where I'm an avid cyclist. Just did a century ride last week of 100 miles, which was awesome. Some of you are probably thinking 100 miles does not sound awesome, but to me it does. And then I am a furry baby mama. So I also have dogs. So here's an example. Don't laugh. Do a slide like this for yourself and think about, what makes me uniquely me? Do you need to share it all over the place? No, but it's a really great way to sort of capture your UBP in a visual brand. E.E. Cummings once said, and I love this quote, to be nobody but yourself in a world that is just basically trying day and night to make you like everyone else is the hardest battle that a human can fight. So the reason why we want to really think about our personal brand is that we tend to fall into what's called comparison trap thinking. And comparison trap thinking is when you look at others and think that you don't measure up. So it's an external block to success. An internal block to success would be more of an imposter syndrome, where you feel that you don't have what it takes. And you probably heard the phrase, fake it till you make it. And that's okay. You can fake it till you make it. But what I'm going to ask you to do is think about two things. Do you have a confidence crisis or do you have a competency crisis? And they're two different things. And so if you have a confidence crisis, you need to figure out how to boost your confidence. And that could be reminding yourself of all the things that make you unique and that make you able to do well in your job and in life. But a competence crisis usually can only be handled by getting proper training, education, professional development. So really think about which one it is. And someone said to me, what if it's both? If it's both, then handle both. Say, okay, I need to boost my confidence by either practicing or by reminding myself about my UBP, about who I am uniquely, and working on my elevator pitch and my networking and refreshing my materials, my LinkedIn, my resume, my cover letter, etc. Or do I have a competency issue and I just need to go and get some training or professional development? So you might not have heard it phrased that way, but I really do want you to think about, is it internal or external or both? How much of your brand do you reveal? So I also teach diversity, equity, and inclusion training. I teach a course for UC Davis called The Inclusive Leader. And I decided to add this in here this year because I think it's an interesting thing for us to examine. We need to be uniquely ourselves while respecting others' uniqueness for their brand. But how much of your brand do you reveal? So there are hidden aspects of brand for all of us. So for example, you might not know all these things about a person by looking at them or by even looking at their LinkedIn or their profiles or their resumes, but they may want you to know certain things about them. There are times when it might be appropriate to talk about age, race, religion, cultural, ethnicity, nationality, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, or political views. The caveat here is that some of these have the potential to marginalize people. So think about whether you want to share some of these and whether it's appropriate to share some of these. And when someone else shares them, please try to have respect for them. And you're probably thinking, when is it ever appropriate to share some of these? Well, for example, one of my clients is applying for a position as a disability rights accommodation specialist in higher education. She just graduated from law school, doesn't want to practice law, but wants to go into sort of a related alternative field. And she wants the people that are on the recruitment committee to know that she doesn't only understand this area of law, but that she is a person with a disability. She also knows that a lot of students on campus might have a different gender identity or sexual orientation, and she belongs to the LGBTQ community. So she felt that it was relevant to mention that in her cover letter. So when it's relevant or appropriate, think about whether you want to reveal hidden aspects of your brand. And as I mentioned, when you're honoring other people's brands, recognize your UBP, respect boundaries, honor privacy, and figure out a good way to be an ally and an advocate for other people when they do reveal hidden aspects of their brand, because it can be vulnerable when you have hidden aspects of your brand revealed. So there are some personality profile assessments out there. You've probably heard of some of these. I will just give you a really, really quick overview. And then if you want to geek out on this and go and take some of these quizzes, I can tell you where to find them. And I also can tell you when it might be appropriate to use these and when it might not be. I like to say that personality profile assessments should be used as a way to study human behavior. So yes, you're putting people in a box for sure, but sometimes it's really appropriate for team building. It can be really appropriate to do these yourself. When you should not use these are, for example, giving someone a personality profile test to determine whether you will hire them. So the reason for that is, for example, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is known as the MBTI, has been overused for hiring in the workforce to the point where it's not allowed to be used anymore for hiring. And the reason is that we have something in the workplace called the extrovert ideal. And we tend to put way too much emphasis on extroversion in the workplace. And if you want to read a great book about how we should be honoring more of the introvert side, then I'm going to put it in the chat, and it's called Quiet by Susan Cain. Oops. Or you can watch her TED Talk on the same subject. And the full name is actually Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Won't Stop Talking. And so she did 10 years of research, and she goes through introversion, the power of introversion in the workplace, in education, in relationships, etc. So great book. So nothing wrong with Myers-Briggs as long as it's used appropriately. The Enneagram is kind of an interesting one. You can take a test online for free. There's a short form test of about 15 questions. And then there's a long test of about 80 questions. I highly encourage you to take the long form one. It should still only take you about 15 minutes. And then you get your Enneagram type, which is a number 1 through 9. The reason I tend to like the Enneagram is it shows you how your type manifests in a healthy way and in an unhealthy way. And I'll give you a quick example using myself and making fun of myself. So my Enneagram is number 3, the achiever. And it can show up as being, a leader. And a lot of people that are achievers are problem solvers and coaches and speakers. And it also will show you some famous people throughout your lifetime that fell into that category. But the negative side of being this particular Enneagram type could be in an unhealthy way that you tend to be bossy and a control freak. So if you're overcoming, if you're a recovering control freak like I am, then you've been working on it, but it's something to watch out for. So that one is one of my favorites. The Clifton Strength Finders has become, or it's also known as Gallup. So Gallup is the name of the company. that runs it commercially, but Clifton is the name of the person. And you've probably seen it out there where you get your 5 strengths. What's nice about that is it's very positive. It doesn't study what's wrong with you. It studies what's right with you. I'm probably in the minority that I'm not a huge fan of it. I know a lot of organizations are, and they're using it, and that's awesome. The reason I'm not is that it comes from the Carl Jung archetypes, as in Jungian archetypes in psychology. And I tend to like the actual original Carl Jung psychological archetypes, whereas what Gallup did and Clifton did was they commercialized it, packaged it, and sold it, and they're making a lot of money off of it. And my hat is off to them, which is great, but I tend to study the original positive psychology as opposed to the sort of marketed, commercialized version of it. But it's a great one, and again, it's very positive. The DISC profile is used mostly in HR, so I'm not going to overcover that. But my favorite of all of these is the 4 tendencies, and that comes from the book by Gretchen Rubin. And you can also go and check out her website, and I believe it's something like gretchenrubin.com/quiz/4 tendencies. I apologize that I don't have the link handy, but if you just go ahead and Google it, you can find the quiz like that. And again, that's one that you can get your answer really quickly about which one of those 4 tendencies you are. There's upholder, questioner, obliger, and rebel. And the most popular one is actually obliger, which is you're a people person and you tend to say yes to others, but not yourself. An upholder says yes to both other people and themselves. A questioner only says yes to themselves, but questions everyone else. And a rebel says no to everything, themselves and others. So if you're curious how this shows up for you and your brand, I highly recommend go take a look at that quiz because it's kind of neat. So personal brand identity. Let's look at what you're passionate about. What are your core values? What are your strengths? And what's your personal mission statement or manifesto? And if you're not sure what I mean by a personal mission statement, here's an example of one. So this just happens to be my personal manifesto. You don't have to use this as yours. What I would love for you to do is, as reinforcement work after today, think about what is your personal manifesto. And I'll show you in the next slide how it then shows up in your career. But before you can figure out your career manifesto, you have to figure out your personal manifesto because they play into each other. Who are you as a person? What motivates you in life? What are your values and your passions and your interests? And really think about that. And then you move to the career side. What is your career mission? I tend to use the PPP, People, Profits, Planet. I want to work with great people. I want to be profitable. I want to make money doing what I love. And I want to be able to connect with people around the planet. Being a global citizen is important to me, which is why I actually like the virtual realm. So does anyone know what their career mission is? I'd be really curious. And it doesn't have to be all fancy, doesn't have to be written out like a personal manifesto, but just a few words about what's important to you for your career mission. If you can think of some ways to describe your career mission, if you could put them in the chat, that'd be awesome, just to kind of get an idea. And if no one wants to play with their career mission, then at least start thinking about it. What is my career mission? And someone asked me recently, what's the difference between a career mission and, for example, something I brought up earlier, which would be, your UBP. So a career mission takes aspects of your UBP, your background, your education, your training, whatever, and then packages it in a way that says what you want moving forward. So it's a little more aspirational. Here's what I want for my career. Hopefully you can think of some ways to describe your career mission. And the reason it's important is it will guide you as you move forward in your career, as you interview, as you look for different jobs. So someone said my career mission at 25 is to save the world. My career mission in 2021 at a much older age is to survive and help others thrive. So I love this sort of evolution of the career mission. And Jennifer, we have something in common. So my career mission when I came out of law school, probably around the same age, at around 25, was to save the world, only to realize that that is an unrealistic career mission, and not everyone wants to be saved. So like you, my career mission has evolved, and now I want to help others just like you thrive. And I want to help them live their best lives, run their best businesses in a way that they can be happy and profitable. Sheila said to help people secure their financial well-being so they can pursue long and fulfilling lives. That's beautiful. That's also a great elevator pitch. Hi, my name is Sheila, and I help people secure their financial well-being so they can live a long, prosperous life. That's a great one. Someone said they need to sign off, but it's great so far. You're so welcome. You can come back and watch the rest of it at any time. Sheila said, thank you, you're welcome. We got a great elevator pitch there. Good. So brand strength. So let's get into the way that your brand now touches the rest of the world. This is how you promote your internal brand externally. And you should be clear on this, because if not, you're missing the mark, and you also could be perceived as authentic. So these are the brand strands that we were going to cover: visual, auditory, print, online presence, and offline presence. So before we get into these, let me just run a quick poll for you. And here we are. Please take a look at this poll. My brand is, and just select the best match, just one of these. So I know that's hard sometimes, but pick the one that is the closest match to where you think you are with your brand. And I apologize, there's one answer in there that's from a different poll, number 4, so ignore that one. I'm reading it, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So just skip number 4, so it's number 1, 2, 3, and then 5, 6. Good. I will share these in a moment, just give everyone a chance to read through those. No one's brand is outdated, that's good. And no one's brand is non-existent. Okay, this is a good group. Okay, going once. Anyone else? All right, I am. Are you seeing these poll results? It says I'm sharing. Let's see. Okay, now hopefully you're seeing it. So interesting, because it's very mixed. Unique, one person said identifiable, people know what my brand is. One person said scattered, my brand is a bit all over the place, inconsistent. The good news is no one here said that it's outdated or that it is non-existent, so that's good. So for those of you that think that your brand might be a little scattered, we will work on that. For those of you that said it's unique, good for you, it sets you apart. And if it's identifiable, then again, it means people know you and know your brand. So they should be able to say, oh, you know, so-and-so is this, this, and this. Okay, so let's take a look. Oops, went back too far. So visual components of a brand: your physical presence, your facial expressions, your clothing and style, your hair, makeup, and grooming, photos and images that you select to share with the world, the colors that you wear, and any logos that you might create for yourself. Yeah, mostly for yourself, because if it's a logo of an organization you work for, then I wouldn't really say it's part of your personal brand. It's part of your professional brand, but you might not have a choice. So is there anything else that's a part of your visual brand that I didn't hit upon here? I can't think of anything else, but take a look at these. So how are you showing up with your visual components? What photos are you selecting to put on your LinkedIn profile, for example? What photo is your official headshot? What colors do you wear? Do you need a refresh with your image, with your visual image, your clothing, etc.? Do you have a facial expression that maybe is not serving you well? One of my clients, for example, didn't realize she was rolling her eyes whenever she was thinking of something, and it gave the indication on Zoom that she wasn't interested. By the way, I don't even know how to roll my eyes. So if you do, that's pretty cool, but I can't, just like I can't roll my tongue. But think about, do you have any facial expressions that maybe you need to work on in terms of, your brand shifting? And I can't stress enough that you need to write and speak well. It's a vital part of your brand, is to be a good communicator. And if you struggle in this area, get assistance. There's definitely help with being able to write better and speak better. For those of you that might have, and I'm going to put this in quotes, an accent, and I say that because we tend to think people that don't speak like us have an accent, but that doesn't mean that someone has an accent. It means that they're perceived as having an accent. Someone said they want to smile more as they speak. I like how you do it. Thank you. What's cool is I can't see myself. So that's another tip I'll give you. Sometimes people get, I was just reading an article. I want to say, don't quote me on this. I don't know if it was a Wall Street Journal, New York Times, but basically the article said that people tend to get Zoom fatigue when they're looking at themselves. They get less Zoom fatigue when they're watching a presentation or looking at other faces. But when they're looking at their own face on Zoom, they're so hyper focused on how they look and what they're doing that they actually get more tired. So that was an interesting tip. And since I teach communication and public speaking, I was like, oh, that's a good one. So unfortunately, I can't see all of you right now because something happened when I shared my screen and y'all went away and I can't get you back. But the good part about that is I also can't see me. So yes, if you want to smile more, and it's funny, whoever said that, I think it was Sheila, I used to have an entire slide that said smile, and I took it out. But the reason it's so important is it is a universal language. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you smile, people understand what that means. It means I am approachable, I am friendly, I am trying, I am vulnerable. There's almost nothing negative about a smile unless you smile like the Joker, and that'd be a little weird. So writing and speaking well, please think about that. Email is writing, and social media posts are writing. Official writing samples are writing. Your resume is writing. Your cover letter, your bio, etc. And hold on, one more question in the chat. Is being described as soft-spoken a negative thing as a young woman in a professional setting? So, Julia, great question. Thank you. I think it just depends on who's saying it, but in my opinion, yes. If someone said that you're soft-spoken and they meant it in a negative way, or they meant it meaning like it's hard to understand you because you're so soft-spoken. In some cultures, being soft-spoken can actually be a compliment. So again, what I was trying to get at before, and let me circle back to your question because I think it's a great tie-in to what I was going to mention, is accent. So the auditory components include your voice, your speaking style, your language, your accent, your word choice, and your elevator pitch. And pro tip here is record yourself. And you will say, oh, I don't like listening to myself. That's even more of a reason why you should record yourself, both auditory and video. And the reason why is you think you sound different, and it's because you do. The way that you hear yourself on the recording is the way we hear you. When you speak, you hear yourself differently because your voice is reverberating through your throat, through your vocal cords, up through your ears, into your ear canal. So you actually hear your voice very differently than people do outside of you. So the nice thing about recording yourself is you go, oh my God, I don't sound like that. You do to us. And so therefore, you should get familiar with what you sound like to everyone else. So going back to Julia's question, I think it depends who's saying it and how. But sadly, again, we're looking at the extrovert ideal in the United States corporate culture, the United States workplace culture. And so usually when someone said, well, he's quite soft-spoken or she's soft-spoken, I don't usually hear that as a compliment. Now, if your boss in a good way is like, oh God, you people are all so loud, you're giving me a headache. Julia's so nice, she's so soft-spoken. Well, of course, that would be a compliment. So how do you deal with this? Well, project. We don't have time for this today, but I gave a dynamic public speaking workshop the other day, and I gave them a diaphragm exercise. And one thing to think about is projecting to get more air, more breath into your words so that you're not as soft-spoken. And coming from someone with a theater background, you know, they like to tease, like, let them hear you in the cheap seats. Practice having a more rounded sound to your voice. Practice opening your throat more when you speak. over enunciating, being a little louder to see how uncomfortable that might feel, and then you can pull it back. So I would say, Julia, that probably some speaking coaching would be a great thing for you. Now, if you like the way you sound and other people like it and it's part of your brand, that you're very intentional, you're very sincere, that you're very easy to understand. It's not that your volume is inappropriate, but you have a more calm, sincere way of speaking and it's soothing. That actually could be a wonderful brand. So think about that. By the way, any other questions? Feel free to put them in the chat and I'd be happy to answer them. I am going to run one more poll. So which, if any, vocal or verbal issues do you have? So let's go over these quickly. Upspeak is when you tend to say everything as if it's a question, as opposed to a declaratory statement. Upspeak is more common on the West Coast than the East Coast, and that is not a generalization because I've lived on both coasts. And basically upspeak, and I'll do it right now so you can hear what it sounds like. It's where you say everything like a question, even though it's not a question, because you sound unsure about yourself, even though you know the answer. So that's upspeak. A filler is you know. Those are fillers. When you speak, you tend to fill space instead of allowing a pause. There's nothing wrong with a pause. So if you tend to have a lot of fillers, go ahead and answer that. An accent would just be, again, do you have an accent as perceived by others? I personally love accents. I think they're a huge part of defining someone's brand. I will tell you as a speaker coach not to get rid of your accent, but if your accent doesn't allow you to be understood by the people that you're communicating with, then just get enough speaker training so that you're more understandable, but not to get rid of your accent. Vocal fry is where your voice cracks and quivers. Think of Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey has that vocal fry. Or think of President Bill Clinton had a little vocal fry going on. Volume is if you speak too loud or too soft, and then speed would be if you speak too quickly or too slowly. So if you have any of these verbal issues, just mark it down in the poll because it's just really great to see. By the way, if you have any vocal issues I didn't list here, please put them in the chat. I think it's just interesting to see what people might be struggling with. Good. By the way, getting back to the smile, someone said to me, there are times when you're presenting or talking when it's inappropriate to smile. I would agree with that. So if I were going to be speaking about a very serious topic, so I was doing some training with a police force in New York years ago, speaker training, and they would show up for press conferences and they had like an outreach coordinator, and it's a very serious topic. And he would leave his cap on and stand in military stance and never smile. And it was very intimidating. So the first thing I said was take off the cap so we could see your eyes. And before you talk about your serious topic, so not during the serious topic, not, hi everyone, we're talking about kidnapping today. That'd be a little weird. But before you do that, smile when you're welcoming people, when you're mentioning your name, then you can stop smiling when you talk about your serious topic. So I do think there's a smile appropriate in every setting, just it depends on the timing of it. Okay, so here are the vocal issues, and they're pretty varied. They're a little upspeak, little fillers, little volume, little speed. And so for people that are struggling with speed, for example, if it's too fast, obviously try to slow it down. And if it's too slow, you want to speed it up a little bit. You also will change your speed depending on if you're speaking to a non-native speaking audience. So when I spoke in Brazil, for example, and I had a translator, I had to slow down a lot. You don't raise your volume, you slow down. And then if you're speaking to, let's say, a group of seniors, you might want to slow down, or certain parts of the country in the United States, you might want to slow down. So again, you'll change that depending on where you are. Print components of a brand. So your business card, you might not have much say in your business card unless you're self-employed, but it is a part of your brand. Your resume or your curriculum vitae, your bio, the words you use in your bio, your writing sample, the one that you choose to give to employers or potential employers, your publications online. If I Google you and I look at what you've published, blog posts, articles, social media posts that are public on LinkedIn. Those are all part of your writing style. How is your writing style? Is it formal? Is it colloquial? So think about all that. That's all part of your print components. Do you have a slogan or tagline that you use? Again, more probably likely if you're running your own business, if you're working for an employer, you're going to adopt their slogan or tagline. And then even promo materials like Crew, I went on their website. I took a look at how they were promoting this event. If you go to a live event, sometimes there's swag. You get, a pen or a tote bag. Those are all part of your brand. This is the cover of my book, The Ultimate Life Organizer. What's interesting about this is when this book came out in 2011, my brand colors were red, white, and black. And then this book came out with all these beautiful pastels. And I was like, oh, wow, this is very off brand. And so I had to decide, do I run a separate brand strand just for this book? Or do I change my entire business? And so remember, I mentioned that much earlier. Sometimes when there's something that's very inconsistent, it can be very intentional. Other times you can miss the mark. So what I did, as you could see with the slide deck, was decided to adopt this sort of more chartreuse apple green. It's fresh, it's lively, the sky colors of the blue, and it has become over time more of my brand. Your online presence. So there's a big deal nowadays with everyone being online. So your employer's website, can you be found on there? Can you be found on social media? And if so, which channels? And what would I find about you? And remember, almost everything is findable these days. Do you have videos or interviews or media that you put out there? Do you have online publications? Have you done a Google search recently of your own name? After today, please put that on your action plan. And then I'll give you a little tip for those of you that don't know how, that have never done this before. You can set up what's called a Google alert, and that is free. So you can do google.com/alerts, and you can put a Google alert around your name in quotes. That way you don't get, I wouldn't get every Lisa that's mentioned. I only get every Lisa Montanaro that's mentioned. You can put a Google alert around articles you published. You could put a Google alert around your organization name, like Crew or Ucrew. And basically the reason you want to do a Google alert is to see what's being said about you online that you might not have known about. So that's a really nice tip there. It's a great way to stay on top of your brand. Another nice tip about that is if you write articles online, and let's say you write a great article and you put it up on a blog and someone steals the article, you can actually find a copyright infringement by doing a free Google alert. So keep that in mind also. Can you be found on professional associations? And that might be cool and impressive and part of your brand. If I Google you, your name, I might see the social media websites you're on, your employer's website, but I might see also that you're part of Crew, for example. Do you have a personal website or blog? And if so, is that conveying the right part of your brand online? Do you run a newsletter? Any other parts of your online presence that I did not bring up? I don't think so, but if you could think of anything that's up there, go ahead and pop it in the chat. But you'll see that this has become a lot more robust than it ever was before, online presence. Years and years ago, online presence wasn't a big part of your brand. Now it's a huge part of your brand. We also bring our preconceived assumptions. And I'll give you an example of one of mine. For better or for worse, I know it's unfair, but when I'm doing business with an organization or a person, I will ask them, let's say in the past, I might have asked them for their business card, right? And I have my business card right over there. Nowadays, especially because I'm not seeing them in person, I'll say, oh, hey, what's your website? What's your organization's website? What's your website if you're self-employed? If the organization or the person doesn't have a website, they don't really exist to me. Isn't that horrible? And I'm just being honest that I feel like they're not legitimate. I feel like they're not professional. Even if it's not this amazing website, I just want to know that they take up online space. And the reason is it's become basically your online brochure. Now, if you don't have a website, your organization, but you have a really robust online presence on YouTube or LinkedIn, that might be fine. But I need to find you somewhere online to be able to research you. Otherwise, I wonder. So that is one of my preconceived assumptions, and we all have them, so just keep that in mind. If anyone can think, as I mentioned, of another area of online presence that I didn't hit upon here, go ahead and put it in the chat. So social media is a loaded issue nowadays. And the reason is, I think people feel this pressure to be on social media, and there's always this new platform. There's, new ones now that just come up recently. Clubhouse, which is basically podcasting with participation. TikTok, which is, are short little videos. And I think there's a lot of pressure. My advice on this is to match the channel to your personality, your goals, your industry, and your community. And then find what we call comparable accounts. Watch, engage, and learn. Find people online that are maybe doing what you want to be doing or a few years ahead of you in your career that are doing it well, and then watch them for a professional sort of role model of like how they're doing this. You want to show up and be present and connect and listen and talk to people. Remember that social media is social. So basically you want to be friendly and connect with people. So remember those 4 C's: great content, make an authentic connection with people, communicate well, and be consistent. And so that would apply here also. And here are all the social media channels. I put LinkedIn at the top because it is still the most professional of all of these. And if you want to build a brand for your career, that is the one that I would highly recommend you be on. So here's a bunch of those, and just put in the chat, I'm so curious which one of these you're using the most, and then put next to it professional or personal, because you might be using LinkedIn for professional, but you might be using Twitter for personal. Maybe you're on Twitter engaging with a certain community or getting news on there. Maybe you're on Facebook personally to connect with your family, but not on there professionally. So anyone here? LinkedIn, good. We have someone, and I assume, Wendy, that would be professional. LinkedIn is becoming so much better. It is really becoming a major player. Now you can put videos on there, blog posts on there, microblogging. They're doing roundups of like weekly newsletters on that LinkedIn is culling based on topics. So much better. So LinkedIn, good. Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter for professional, and then Instagram and Facebook for personal. Yeah, awesome. Good, good, good. I have not dove into TikTok yet, but I happen to really love YouTube. Videos are hot right now. Instagram is hot because it's visual. People love the idea of the visual brand. So keep that in mind. And then content I brought up earlier. Hold on, one more in the chat. I do not use Facebook, someone wrote. So funny, because last night I was interviewing someone on a webinar and they said, I do not use Twitter. So it is okay to not use, let's just go back a bit. This is a lot to handle, to have all of these and maintain a presence. So I would pick your favorites and focus on those. And it's better to be engaged and very active on 2 or 3 or 1 platform than to be sort of not quite engaged and not quite active on all of them. So keep that in mind. Content, you want to develop a content strategy by creating content buckets. So think again about your brand. Who are you? What do you want to share? And then think about buckets for those. So for example, if you are teaching real estate and working in real estate, or someone mentioned that they are in architecture, they are an architect where you do design, one of your buckets will always be what you do professionally. And within that bucket, you could have sub buckets. So maybe you'll share new designs. Maybe you'll share things about your students or your staff, share things about the industry. But some of your buckets could also be more personal. Maybe you love networking. Maybe again, you volunteer for Crew. Maybe you love your university and you're very proud of it. Maybe you love to travel. So think about maybe 5 buckets, and it becomes a lot easier when you write down what those buckets are and kind of come up with a little bit of an editorial calendar. Okay, these are my buckets, and these are the areas that I'll share. And then just think about aiming for, authentic, polite, and on brand. And as I mentioned, visuals and video are really hot. If you are a digital minimalist and you don't love social media, then again, find someone who is similar to you and look at what they share and how often. Maybe they're not, spewing a ton of things. Maybe they're more sharing other resources. So they say, hey, this great organization shared this article. So you don't have to share anything about yourself. You can maintain your privacy, for example, but you're posting relevant topics about a career or an industry by being a resource provider. So that's a great way to do it. Or they connect with others by commenting on other people's posts and by boosting other people's posts. So if you're not in love with sort of pushing out your own stuff, you can still do social media really well by either sharing other people's things or commenting on other people's things. So keep that in mind, because I think a lot of people get nervous. I don't want to just sit there all day and talk about myself. You don't have to. You can talk about, again, other people, industries, organizations, news, etc. And balancing privacy concerns, I use what used to be called the New York Times rule. Let's call it the front cover of the newspaper rule. Some people call it the grandma rule. If you don't want it on the front page of a newspaper, or you wouldn't want your grandmother reading it or seeing it, don't put it online, period, because it will be found. So keep that in mind. Check your privacy settings on Facebook and on Instagram. There are ways to make posts private. There are ways to make profiles private. Don't post identifying characteristics of your street name or your address or the number of your home. I see people standing in front of their house and you can see the name of their street. I know people can find that online, but don't invite it. If you have children and you don't feel comfortable putting pictures of them, don't. And then one tip that someone mentioned recently, which I thought was great, was don't sign in. You know how they have the check-in, like you could check in, like I'm at Starbucks right now. Don't check in if you don't want people to know you're not home. Or if you have children or an elderly person at home or a child with disability at home, post after the fact. That way people don't know where you are to come find you, and they also don't know that someone is left at home. So sad things that we have to think about, but that is a pro tip there. Someone mentioned, I think that some of the social media posts or Facebook posts have hurt job applicants. Absolutely, absolutely. So it's a sad reality that even if you set your profile or certain things private, an organization that hires someone can usually find things. So just be careful with that and use this front cover rule or grandma rule. It can help you. And then of course, monitor your digital footprint, set up the Google alert, regularly search yourself. So maybe do January 1st or maybe do your birthday every year and think about, like, okay, how did I show up in the last quarter or year online? And make sure the results accurately represent you. And be mindful when commenting. Know that people will find it and see it, and try to be consistent. So what about offline? So as we sort of hopefully engage more offline with people, we will attend conferences and workshops virtually. We'll also attend them in person. Some of you are doing speaking and training and presenting. Some of you, all of you are members of professional associations. So you're engaging in that way. You're a member of networking groups, and some of you may be doing the media. So you may be on the radio, on television, showing up in newspapers and magazines. So this makes up your offline presence. So remember, we have visual, auditory, online, offline, and print. So those are the 5 brand strands. So if you're doing offline, then of course, you're showing up with many of those brand strands, because if you and I meet at a networking event in person, I'm now getting a visual brand image of you. Then you start speaking to me. I now have your auditory brand. You may hand me your business card. That's part of your print brand. I may go look you up later on LinkedIn and say, such a pleasure meeting you, Wendy, and I may connect with you. Now that's an online brand. So that is all 5 brand strands. So this is how it all sort of plays out. And maybe Wendy gave me her elevator pitch, which again is an auditory brand strand, but if she wrote it out, or gave me a copy of her resume, maybe I said I would hook her up with an informational interview with someone in my industry. So there are ways that your brand comes forth. By the time we finish that connection or that engagement, by the time I look her up on LinkedIn, send her resume to someone, I have a pretty good aspect of what my perception of her brand is. So keep that in mind. So let's do a little exercise right now, the 5 branding words. And this is something that I hope helps all of us tweak as we go along. There's a book written by Elizabeth Gilbert called Eat, Pray, Love. Some of you may have read the book. Some of you may have seen the movie with Julia Roberts. And basically, when you think about that book, eat was Italy, pray was India, and love was Indonesia. So what Elizabeth Gilbert did there was come up with one branding word for each country. And someone asked her when she was in Rome, Liz, what's your brand? And she said, one word? Oh, geez, that's so hard, because it is. So what I'm going to do is give you 5 words. And I would like them to be a combination of left brain and right brain, or what we call hard and soft skills. So what I mean by that is left brain words would be sort of analytical, numerical. So think maybe I'm detail oriented, I'm intelligent, I'm a problem solver, I'm trying to think, I'm organized, I'm productive. Those are very left brain. Right brain words might be I'm empathetic, I'm caring, I'm friendly. So try to have a little combination of the 2 of those. Don't have all 5 be right brain or soft skills, and don't have all 5 be left brain or hard skills. I would like you to list your 5 words before you leave. It says conference, but this workshop, because we're not in person. And then also, you'll see on the next slide, to compare what others say about you. So give this a tiny bit of thought. If you feel comfortable, put your 5 words, or even just a few of the words, in the chat. And a really great exercise is not just to do these 5 branding words for yourself, but to do them for someone else. So do them with your friends, your family, your colleagues, your workers. Please be positive, of course. And then you want to check your brand as perceived by others. So do these 5 branding words show up in your letters of recommendation, in your job evaluations, in your testimonials? Ask employers, colleagues, and close friends, but only ask people that are your believing eyes, meaning only ask people that believe in you. Don't ever ask someone to give you your 5 branding words if they don't like you or believe in you. So anyone want to take a crack at some of their branding words? It'd be really fun to see some of those. Go ahead and give that some thought. By the way, people ask, where do you use these? I should be able to get an idea of your 5 branding words in your bio, on your social media, the way you describe yourself in your little mini summary on LinkedIn, maybe in your cover letter, maybe in the summary at the top of your resume. So yes, you should be thinking about these 5 branding words, weaving them into your branding materials over time. If I look at your branding materials and then I look at your 5 branding words and there's a huge disconnect, you're missing the mark and you're missing this great opportunity. So no one is putting in any 5 branding words. Okay, so hopefully you will do this for homework. I think I could think of my 5 branding words. So professional, productive, sassy, warm, and intelligent. And so you'll see that there are 2 or 3 right brain and 2 or 3 left brain. And hopefully those show up in the way that I conduct myself and in the way that I comport myself online and offline. Okay, good. So Erin said organized, detail-oriented, big picture thinker, friendly, and empathetic. And I would probably argue that big picture thinker may be visionary, because that kind of encompasses that. And then organized and detail-oriented are fairly similar, but you might mean them in a different way. So you could probably keep both of those, but anything that's too similar, give yourself an opportunity to pull out another word. What I love about this, Erin, is the balance. We see that someone is very dependable, reliable with their detail-oriented, that you're organized, that you're able to see visions and big pictures, but that you're also friendly, approachable, and certainly empathetic. So those are awesome. Thank you. Definitely think about doing the 5 branding words exercise for homework. Judy Garland said, always be a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of somebody else. For those of you that sometimes feel that comparison trap syndrome rearing its ugly head, take a look at this slide, put this quote on a Post-it note, because you really want to be true to yourself and not try to compare yourself with others. When you fall into that comparison trap, there's a reason in a good way. There's something that other person is doing that is motivating and inspiring to you. You don't have to do the exact same thing, but say, what is it that's making me pay attention to this? What is it that's this person's doing that I either like or want more of for myself? Why is this giving me FOMO, fear of missing out? So adopt that for yourself in some way. So if they're doing some public speaking and you're like, wow, I want to do this, so figure out a small way to do that. If they just got a promotion, do you want a promotion, or do you just want to get some better assignments or projects? So figure out where the comparison trap is coming from and then adopt a mini version of it for yourself. So let's circle back as we start to wrap up to networking, because we started with that. Networking is building this genuine, authentic connection. It is relationship building. So it does very much connect to your brand and to the 4 C's that I mentioned earlier. And remember what I mentioned really early on, that branding is the core, it's the heart. Marketing is the skin of how you engage with the world. And then networking is that personal sort of voice and smile, a much more intimate, personal. So how do you network effectively? First is know your goals for attending a networking event. Are you there to meet certain people? Are you there to let people know about you and that you're looking for maybe a job or you want to get a project? Are you there to learn and be educated and listen? So what are your goals? Because we always have different goals for attending a networking event. And your goal for a networking event should never be to hit everyone quickly, walk around the room like speed dating. That's exhausting for you and for them. It should also never be to just collect as many business cards, but not make a connection. If you don't know your goal, then at least adopt this one, connect. That should be the goal. Quality over quantity. Be visible. If you're on a virtual setting and you want to make a connection, turn on your video, which means be video ready with your visual brand. Dress the part. Again, on virtual, you might be dressing the part from here up, but in person, you're going to be dressing the part. So think about, again, what type of visual brand you're conveying. Be organized before, during, and after the event. If you want to connect with someone, and that was your main reason for this, follow up with them quickly. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Say it was a pleasure meeting you. Figure out, how you can stay engaged. And of course, with networking, we want to use good communication skills. So we want to use good etiquette. We want to be open and personable and polite and friendly. Try to be as confident as you can. If you need a boost, there is a great TED Talk by Amy Cuddy called Power Poses. It sounds silly, and some scientists have tried to debunk it, but I definitely see it with my clients before they do an interview, before they do a speak engagement, before they go to a networking event. There are a few things that you might want to do in some of these power poses. Putting your hands behind your head opens up your throat, opens up your neck, opens up your chest. Standing in the what's called the Wonder Woman pose, regardless of your gender, can be very empowering. Again, it sounds weird. I'm not going to do it right now, but sort of opening up your legs and stretching out your legs is another great power pose. Looking at yourself in the mirror and smiling is a great power pose. And practicing your elevator pitch in an auditory way out loud before you go to an event, before you jump on Zoom, before you drive somewhere is also a great way to prepare. Find a common connection with someone and try to lead with personal or neutral first. Try not to go in for the kill. If you're there to make a connection, find a job, ask for informational interviews, that's great. But try to at least introduce yourself first and make some type of personal connection before you do your big ask. A cleverly crafted elevator pitch, as you heard our 2 wonderful volunteers earlier today, Wendy and Erin, is an expression of who you are, what makes you stand out, and why people and organizations would want to do business with you or work with you. And it also grabs people's attention. The problem is time is not on your side. So they call it a 30-second elevator pitch, but you really only have about 5 seconds. And the reason for that is that a good elevator pitch is a series of smaller pitches. So it's actually called verbal ping pong. You might say something and they might say, oh, that's really cool. Tell me more. And you might tell them more. And then they might ask a question. And so it really is more of a conversation. The term elevator pitch comes from out here in Northern California, from Silicon Valley. And it was the time that it would take an elevator to go up when you would pitch a venture capitalist to ask for funding. So think, Apple, you've developed this great new app. And over time, it's been morphed into basically any pitch that you would say about yourself or your career. So think of it as a series of smaller pitches that gives someone time to reflect and talk and listen. So there's this great method that I'm going to leave you with called the How, Now, Wow method. And it was developed by Brian Walter, who is the former president of the National Speakers Association. He's a really wonderful, funny person and speaker. And he's given me permission to teach this with attribution back to him, of course. And it forces you to have a conversation instead of giving a canned slogan or tagline that sounds like an infomercial. So the idea of the how, now, wow, if you want to build this out, remember you'll get these slides and you also have the interactive handouts, so you could fill it in if you want. The how is your core pitch. It's the basic formula of what you do, who you do it for, and the benefits or results achieved. So let's say you're still a student. It could be, hi, my name is Lisa, and I am a second-year law student at NYU Law School, studying in immigration law, or let's say commercial real estate law, or corporate law. And my intention is to get a job with a small law firm in New Jersey so that I can rock closings for my individual clients and help them get their dream home. So I just made that up, but that's an elevator pitch. So it's what you do, who you do it for, results or benefits achieved. Basic formula. Then you build on that, the now. The now are some examples, and I would try to have about 3 examples at the ready. So this is when the person you're talking to is interested and they're like basically saying to you, tell me more. So what do you mean exactly? So you might say, oh, here's an example. So for me, I might say, here's an example. As a professional speaker, I spoke yesterday for this awesome Ucrew event and talked about branding and using your personal brand and your professional brand to further and enjoy your career. So have some examples, because a lot of times we don't really know what people do in their careers and in their jobs. So if you have some examples ready, it really helps people, because I don't know about you, but I don't know what every job entails. And sometimes, again, you might say a title, I don't get it. Hopefully you use your how, your basic formula, and have a much better idea. But let's say you're that student that's graduating and wants to go into, and by the way, I just realized I said commercial real estate and then real estate closings for a house. So let's say it's commercial real estate and you want to do sustainable, community-minded development. And you want to specifically pick a community that maybe is struggling and help develop it. Be a great thing to do, right? So if you want to do that, give some examples. Well, for example, I've targeted 5 towns in New Jersey, and I've looked at some development companies and I've studied their models, and I would like to work for one of those 5 because I love their mission. So very, very specific. For those of you that are already doing work, it's pretty easy. You just think of some examples from your current work. The wow is the last build out of the elevator pitch. And this is clever and creative, and it's kind of got that little extra factor that sets you apart. It's cool, it's punchy, it's kind of memorable. It makes people want to do business with you. So think of some examples of wow lines. Describe what you do as a simile or metaphor. Describe it as a movie trailer. Paint a picture of the results. Make a comparison to popular culture. Be passionate about it and believe that it's cool to work with you. So an example of this might be, I'm trying to think of a quick example for you. Let's say you're a career coach. Like when I was a career coach at NYU, I might say to someone, do you know when you're getting ready to graduate college or some type of graduate school program, and that first job is so important to you? I help people nail that first great job. There you go. That's basically saying I'm a career counselor without saying the title, I'm a career counselor. And everyone has had a first job out of, secondary education, higher education, et cetera, high school, beyond. So we can all relate to that, which is really wonderful. You can also give a comparison to popular culture. So someone said to me, what's your speaking style like? And at the time, and now unfortunately, one of my personal heroes has passed away, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But at the time I said something like, I have the warm, sassy Italian-American background of a Rachel Ray meets the sort of jurisprudence of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So think about comparisons to popular culture to sort of get your point across. So hopefully you've got some wow lines in you. I remember I was at a networking event once years ago, and I asked someone what he did for a living, and he said, I save people's lives. And I was like, oh, so of course, what did I do? I started guessing. It's like, oh, are you a surgeon? Are you this or that? Trying to guess. And basically he said, as he was walking away, I'm an EMT. I am an emergency medical technician. And I'll never forget that because it was really, really punchy. It was a great wow line. Be careful with your wow line if it comes across really salesy or infomercial. It'll miss the mark. So elevator pitch tips, practice, definitely practice. And practice saying your pitch out loud, try to get some feedback. And if your pitch isn't working at an event, virtual or in person, just forego it and make a connection. It's more important. You might make a genuine connection and someone might say, oh, I can't wait to connect with you on LinkedIn. By the way, what do you do? That's actually okay because it means they like you as a person and maybe they can't help you with your career, but at least you've made a genuine connection. Record yourself. Again, as I mentioned, video and audio. Find a buddy, an elevator pitch buddy to practice with, and try out different pitches at different events. I think that's actually really useful. And when you try out a pitch, if you get a great response, be like, oh, this worked really well, which is good. Oh, someone said, I help people fund their dreams. Yes, I love that. That's a great one. And really think about that. It is so important to be able to have the money to be able to live your best life and to fund your dreams. I love that one, Sheila. It's a great one. By the way, yes, if anyone has a wow line, put it in the chat. It's really fun to see different examples of wow lines. And that does take some practice because it can come across a little corny sometimes, but I like them. I think they're awesome. So wrapping up, think about where you want to be in the future, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Does your personal brand identity match your vision for the future? If not, create it, curate it, grow it, or change it so that it does match your future. So have a personal brand action plan. So after today, do you need to tweak your bio? Is there one of the social media profiles that you want to go in and tweak? Do you need a new headshot? Do you want to change your brand, your image, your visual brand, your image, your clothing, your wardrobe? Do you want to get some speaker coaching to help with your verbal? Do you need to do some confidence boosting? So think about what you want to work on. Work on the 5 branding words exercise. Work on your UBP to make sure that you are capturing your UBP, and then incorporate that into your 5 brand strands, into your visual, auditory, print, offline, and online. And remember, you own your brand and you can change it, which is great. Your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card, and how you leave others feeling after having experience with you becomes your trademark. This is what's really important. So thank you so much for your attention and your participation. Here is my communication slide, contact slide. That's the word I'm looking for. It didn't come to the train station. So if you want to connect with me, remember you will have access to these slides. Feel free to say hello, connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Instagram, and I would be really, really happy to answer any questions that you have after today and engage with you. So I think now, yay, I have all of your wonderful faces back. So we did it within time.
We did. Thank you, Lisa, so much for your time and your insights. I know I will be working on my 5 branding word exercise and updating my summary on my LinkedIn profile. And I think I need to update my photo as well. So I know we all have takeaways and lesson learned. So thank you again so much to you, to everyone who participated. We do have a recording of this and you should have the slides and the handout. So if there are any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out, but we will be following up for those who participated with the recording and all the material. So thank you again. We hope to see you in person for our Ucrew event for next year. I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And say hello to the Big Apple for me, those of you that are there. And hopefully, yes, I'll be back there at some point soon and we will all be together. In the meantime, thank you so much. You're welcome. For those of you saying thank you for your attention, your participation. Go do your exercises. And remember, branding should be fun. It should be something that you enjoy, and it never ends in a good way. So keep working on it.
That we will. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.